G'day and welcome to another episode of Sam's Hunt and Cook. Welcome to Prep and Cook Part 2. On today's episode we're going to continue breaking down the hind that I took in Part 1, where I used the chuck portion of the rib cage to make a nice rolled rib roast. On today's episode, Part 2, we're going to be working with the right hand side of the rib cage. It's got a large exit wound in it, and because of that we've got a lot of blood, hemorrhaging and bruising. But that's okay, we're going to have a bit of fun with it. We're going to do our best to get a few cuts out of it, we'll remove the shoulder, and we'll get some short rib out of it for our next meal. So stick around, let's see what we can come up with. Okay, so here's our right rib cage, shoulder still attached. First thing we're going to do is flip him over. We're going to come back on that fifth rib, separate the ribs from the chuck and the shoulder. Just going to lighten the load a little bit. Let's come back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A little bit frozen still. It's all good. Grab our saw. Cut through that sternum. And then through the spine and the back of the shoulder blade. Righto, now we're apart. You can see how this is where our bullet's exited. It's come through our 7th rib, absolutely destroyed it. Hit the back of the scapula and some of it's bounced out and gone through for our exit hole. We've got quite a lot of damage in there, a lot of hemorrhaging. It's really destroyed all this meat here. So we're going to work with that. I'm going to strip this out here. We'll start by removing all this damaged meat off the top. We'll remove the scapula, what's left of just the end of it where I've cut through it. Then we'll tidy the ribs right up, see what we can salvage for our short ribs and what we're going to leave on for our cuts. So, just going to make a cut through here, start working it out. Unfortunately, a lot of this is quite badly damaged, but that's when you get, that's what you get when you shoot a deer so close with a 300 rum or any magnum caliber for that matter. Righto, that's all pretty nasty. Haven't got a lot there that I can really salvage, but righto, our battery just went flat. Sorry about that, guys. Just a bit of a recap. All I've done is I've just stripped all that outside meat off. I've just divvied it up in between human consumption and what's there for pet food. So I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing with what's left on here. I'm just going to bone out the rest of this rib cage. Anything that's good, I'm going to put it in our human consumption pile to get minced up and go and stew. And then all this damaged stuff here will just go over to the pet food side. So yeah, back into it. Let's get stuck in. Righto, that does look like a little bit of a dog's breakfast at the minute, but bear with me, we'll tidy him up. So the first thing we'll do, we'll just grab our bone saw and we'll just knock the rest of the bones off here, and we'll just discard the rest of the ribs, then we'll get into tidying it up a bit more. Right, I've just had a crack at cutting through this with a saw. It's a bit of a pain in the butt. So, just going to resort to these little babies. So, just make light work of it. Come up about 2 inches. Knock them off. There we go, nice and easy. Discard the ribs. Or feed them to your dog if you're happy doing that. So, just going to flip him over. Going to get the saw onto this and just tidy the back side of the ribs up there. Okay, some of you might be asking, why doesn't he just use a bandsaw? Well, one, I don't have one. I will be installing one. I'm doing some renovations on the place and I don't quite have the room for that yet. And two is, you can do it without it. I think a lot of people, they get a bit shy doing this stuff because they think they don't have all the gear that they need to do it. Look, you can do it. Just get a saw, have a hack, use your renovator like I did in the last video. You can buy nice butcher blades for Recipro saws, get those. Get a hold of your butcher supplier and yeah, just get into it, have a crack. That's the main thing. Righto, so right, just got a touch more backbone in here. I'm just going to remove that and then we'll start cutting it up into our cuts and tidying it up, making it look plateable. Well, that was a little bit of a wrestle, I will admit, but at the end of the day, if the world gives you lemons, make lemonade, or if you blow a massive hole in a deer with a gun that's probably too big to be shooting it that close with, do the best you can. You can have a little bit of fun along the way. I mean, I could have pulled the back strap off this bone, but we wouldn't have been able to have our beautiful little cuts like this with a little bit of bone attached that we can use it, flip it over, sear it on the pan, and then hang on to that while we have a feed. There we go. So we've got 5 cuts around the outside with rib bone still attached. We lost the whole rib bone because it was smashed to pieces by the projectile exiting the animal. And then we ended up with a couple of little medallions in the middle with no rib bone attached at all. But that's still more than enough for a couple of people. Fry them up on the barbecue on the hot plate. I'd season them up first, give them a good sear both sides. That stuff's going to melt in your mouth. Righto, on to the next bit. Okay, before we move on with that rib cage, shoulder and chuck, let's go back to when we had the back half of our rib cage left over from our last video and our brisket. So what we're going to do here, we're going to knock the bottom of our ribs off on the back. We're going to try and get a couple of cattleman's cuts out of what's left of this here. And then our brisket and the bottom half of these ribs, we're going to knock into small portions or short ribs to do our slow cook short ribs. Starting with our ribs, we're going to take our bone saw and we're going to try and take out the rest of this spine here as best we can. Okay, once we're through, let's take our knife and just follow that muscle up the back of the spine, get that spine free. Okay, now we're going to, we've got our broken rib anyway here where our bullet's gone through, so we'll use that as our sort of starting point. So we'll just come down past this small little muscle group here. Right, I'm actually just going to use my little cable cutters instead of the saw. Be a lot less awkward than just trying to cut 3 ribs. There we go, straight through. Put those aside for our short ribs. We'll just work on this little fella here. We'll try and get a couple of nice little tidy cuts out of him. So let's take this cap off the top. Peel him up, follow that seam back. Nothing wrong with him, he can go in our pile of good minced meat. I'm just going to take a little bit of damaged flesh off the top here. Okay, that's looking pretty tidy. Just remove some of this bone, square it up. I'm going to go ahead and take this little bit of silver off here. Righto, so here we are. We've got our end squared up, we've got our silver sinew removed, nice bit of backstrap there, bit of rib meat left on the bottom, and there we are. So we're just going to cut down through the middle of our rib bones there, 4 beautiful little portions to add to the eye pieces that we had on the plate just earlier. Just look at those, absolutely beautiful. Righto, so a little bit of bad news. I've just lost another battery, and because of that it took out the footage I was taking at the time. I don't know why, it just did. I was pulling down the front half of that rib cage pretty well to discover that most of it was stuffed as well. I got the shoulder off, which we'll use in another episode, but what we're left with is pretty much another chuck eye roast. So this is where we're picking up now. Sorry guys. Okay, now with our bone dust removed, flip him over. Let's just remove a little bit of this sinew here. Don't particularly need all that in our roast. There's a little bit of silver sinew there, that'll be right. Okay, flip him over, make him a nice little roll there. Get our butcher's twine. Okay, so there we have it, all cleaned up. I guess you'd call that a chuck eye venison French roast. On to the next bit. Righto, so here we have our short ribs ready for the oven. Our front 5 portions here are off the brisket, so they're nice and fat, where our back 4 here are from the rear part of the rib, so they're a bit more lean on, but still plenty of meat on there. They're going to be a good chew. Let's get them in.
Well, what a cracking feat that turned out to be. No surprises there, they're always a winner. A little bit of blurry footage and some camera trouble along the way for that one, guys, but we did get there in the end. Please let me know what you think, drop a comment and a like, and if you want to see more, please subscribe. Otherwise, happy hunting and full bellies. I'll catch you on the next one.